In the far edge of the galaxy, in a place full of stars and dust, something silent was spreading. Everyone called it just a rumor, a quiet warning. Passed from planet to planet, it said one thing: don't cross Earth's fleet. But the Varkari Empire didn't believe in such stories. They thought Earth was small, weak, slow to act. They had crushed many worlds before, and they thought Earth would be the same. Commander Brooke Allen stood on the deck of her warship, the Silverlight, staring out into space. The ship floated near the Zenthra ring, a beautiful curve of frozen rocks glowing under distant suns. But there was no beauty in her eyes, only focus. She had received a strange message an hour ago, a transmission from the Varkari Empire, not a request, but a demand. They wanted Earth to hand over control of the nearby colonies and all mining rights. No warning, no negotiation, just a voice full of arrogance. The message ended with, "Refuse and suffer." She didn't answer. Instead, she saved the recording and sent it to Earth Command. Then, she stood in silence, hands behind her back, thinking about what it meant. She had heard of the Varkari. Everyone had. They were tall, powerful, four-eyed creatures with skin like rough stone. They were used to taking whatever they wanted, but they had never fought humans in open war. Not truly, not yet. The crew waited for her orders. Some were nervous, some angry, but none of them said a word. Everyone felt something was coming, not just a battle, but something bigger. Brooke finally turned around and spoke. No response. They'll make their move first. We'll wait. Elsewhere in the galaxy, another ship moved through black space. Silent and hidden, it was the F's Valiant, led by Captain Mason Blake. His ship wasn't as fast as the Silverlight, but it was stronger, heavier, and known across the systems for its thick armor and firepower. Blake was older than Allen, a quiet man with deep scars and deeper memories. He had fought before, in wars people no longer remembered, and he knew the signs. He too had received the Varkari message, and when he heard the words, his jaw tightened, not in fear but in readiness. Back on Earth, the leaders of the fleet gathered in a dark chamber under the surface of the planet. The air was cold, the lights dim. Each screen on the walls showed different regions of space, battleships, colonies, trade routes, but everyone in the room focused on just one screen. Transmission from the Varkari. They played it again and again, listening to the voice, the tone, the disrespect. Then Admiral Talia Monroe stood up and said just 4 words. Prepare the 7th Fleet. That was all she needed to say. Ships all across the systems received silent activation codes. Engines powered up in deep space hangars. Cannons slid from hidden compartments. Stealth drives shimmered. It was not war, not yet, but Earth was not going to wait to be hit. They moved in shadows, quiet and cold. While the rest of the galaxy watched with curiosity, some laughed, thinking Earth would kneel. Some stayed quiet, remembering what happened last time someone pushed too far. The Varkari had no fear. They thought humans would come to talk, beg, maybe pay. They sent scouts to Earth's border, sleek ships with glowing red hulls. They floated past old satellites and worn stations, looking for signs of weakness, but they didn't see the real fleet, not yet. Earth's warships were hiding, not because they were afraid, but because they were patient, and patience was something the Varkari never understood. Back on the Silverlight, Allen walked the corridors of her ship, stopping at the hangar, watching her fighters being checked. The pilots nodded to her, young and ready. She could feel their energy, but she kept her calm. One of her officers, a man named Daniel Rhodes, asked quietly, "Do you think they'll really attack?" She answered without turning, "They already did." With their words, in that moment, a soft alarm echoed through the halls. An incoming ship. Allen rushed to the command deck, her eyes locked on the screen. A Varkari battlecruiser had just entered the neutral zone. It wasn't a scout. It was armed, large, and aggressive, and it was heading straight toward them. She looked at her officers, then at the blinking red symbol on the map. Her voice was low, almost calm. "Let them come. We'll make our stand here, all across space." Other Earth commanders received similar signals. Ships moving into places they shouldn't be. Valkyrie pushing deeper, testing Earth's patience. But Earth did not panic. They watched, waited, and prepared. And as the stars blinked and the galaxies turned, one rule moved quietly between planets, between captains, between enemies and allies alike. A rule that wasn't written, but understood by those who had seen Earth's fire once before. Don't cross Earth's fleet. The Valkyrie didn't. Listen. They thought it was just a story. They were about to learn the truth. The Valkyrie ambassador arrived in Earth space like he owned the stars. His ship was covered in gold plates and sharp black edges, meant to show off power. Around him were 3 escort ships, flying close like bodyguards. They entered the diplomatic zone slowly, expecting a welcome, but there was none. No Earth ship came to greet them. No message was sent. Inside the Valkyrie ship, the ambassador, named Tarvak, paced slowly across the deck. His face, made of hard green stone-like skin, showed no emotion, but he was confident. The galaxy feared his people. He believed Earth would soon kneel just like the others. He smiled as he said, "Bring me there. Leaders, they will listen or they will burn." But no one answered. The space around them remained quiet. Too quiet. No chatter, no noise. Not even from nearby trade routes. It was as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. Then one signal came through. A single voice, cold and direct, spoke from the shadows of deep space. "You are not welcome here. Turn back." Tarvak laughed. "This is Valkyrie territory now. Earth is small. Earth is weak. Earth will obey." That was his second mistake. From behind the moons of a nearby planet, a dark figure emerged. It was the EFS Nightshade, an Earth warship with black armor and no lights. It seemed to rise from the shadows like a ghost, silent and terrifying. It didn't power weapons, didn't raise shields, didn't even move fast. It simply hovered in place, watching. On the bridge stood Rear Admiral Nora Whitman. She had served Earth's fleet for over 20 years. She had no interest in making speeches or threats. She believed in actions, not words. She looked at the Valkyrie vessel and whispered, "He has no idea what he's doing." One of her officers asked, "Should we warn them again?" She shook her head. "No, we said enough." Back on the Valkyrie ship, Tarvek's smile faded slightly. He didn't like silence. He didn't like mystery. "Scan that ship," he ordered. But when the scans came back, they made no sense. The readings were jammed, distorted, impossible. The Nightshade gave off signals like it was both a battleship and a freighter, both near and far, alive and empty. It was using Earth's new tech quantum interference masking. And the Valkyrie had no defense for it. Tarvak growled, "Raise shields, prepare weapons." But before they could even charge a cannon, the Nightshade sent a new signal. It wasn't a voice. It was a broadcast, a simple replay of Tarvek's earlier demand, played over and over. But behind his words, Earth had added something: soft whispers, not in any known language, strange and haunting. It made the Valkyrie crew nervous, even afraid. Some thought the message was cursed. Tarvak yelled, "Shut it off!" His crew obeyed, but the damage was done. The ambassador looked at the Nightshade, still not moving, still silent. And for the first time, he felt a chill deep in his bones. He turned to his officers. "Send word back to the Empire. Tell them Earth is not playing fair." Meanwhile, in deep space, Fleet Captain Jonah Price received a private message from Admiral Whitman. It said only 2 words. "He came." Jonah smiled. He had been waiting for this moment. He knew what it meant. Earth's silence had done its job. They didn't need to speak loudly. They just needed to remind the galaxy of one truth: Earth doesn't bow. Earth Command watched everything from far away. They allowed the Valkyrie to enter, allowed them to speak, allowed them to threaten. But now they had recorded everything. Every insult, every arrogant word. It was saved, backed up, and shared with all of Earth's key allies. It would be used later as proof that the Valkyrie started this. On a station near Mars, A group of civilians watched the silent broadcast. On large screens, the room was full of silence. No one cheered, no one laughed. They all knew what was coming next. A child looked up at his father and asked, "Will there be a war?" The father didn't answer. He just stared at the image of the nightshade, cold and unmoving in the stars. Back on the nightshade, Admiral Whitman gave the final order. Let them go. They need to deliver the message themselves. The Valkyrie. Ships were allowed to turn back, unharmed, unchallenged, and Tarvek took that as a sign of weakness. He thought Earth had blinked first. That was his third mistake. As the Valkyrie ships disappeared into deep space, Earth ships across the sector began to shift positions, not toward retreat, but toward preparation. Earth never acted in anger, but when they did act, they acted fast, hard, and without mercy. Other alien empires began to take notice. They received the same broadcast Tarvaic had heard. They watched the images of Earth's silent ship and heard the whispers behind the ambassador's voice. And they remembered old stories, old wars, old warnings. One rule echoed across the stars again, growing louder with each passing hour. Don't cross Earth's fleet. The Valkyrie still didn't understand it, but soon they would. The stars over the Drell sector looked calm, but below that silence, trouble was brewing. The Valkyrie Empire had grown tired of Earth's quiet resistance. They wanted to test Earth's limits, push its patience, and prove to the galaxy that humans were nothing special. So they sent 3 warships into Drell sector, a place rich with minerals and home to small human colonies. The Valkyrie ships had powerful cannons, thick shields, and crews full of pride. They thought Earth wouldn't dare fight back. One of the colonies, Vetrax 9, sent a distress call. It was a mining world with families, engineers, and workers who never trained for war. The Valkyrie ships hovered above their skies like shadows, demanding surrender. The people were afraid. They had seen what the Valkyrie did to other planets, burned cities, broken orbit stations, and ruined lives. But Vetrax 9 wasn't alone. About 2 sectors away, the Earth stealth cruiser EFS Revenant moved through the dark like a whisper. Its black hull reflected no light. Its engines made no sound. Captain Sam Keller sat quietly in his command chair. He had no medals, no speeches, no fame, but among Earth's high command, he was known as the Shadow. He didn't wait for permission. He already had standing orders if the Valkyrie stepped into Earth's claimed space. Take action. The Revenant entered the Drell sector without being noticed. It used terrain, asteroid fields, and dust clouds to hide its movements. Sam watched the Valkyrie ships on screen. They were large, glowing red with heat and pride. One of them began charging weapons, aiming at the colony's communication tower. Sam said only 2 words, "Now strike." From the bottom of the Revenant, 4 silent missiles were released. They moved fast. Invisible to basic sensors, they didn't explode on impact. Instead, they sent shock pulses to the enemy ships, shutting down their systems. Within seconds, one Valkyrie ship lost all power and drifted into an asteroid, smashing into pieces. The second ship tried to fire, but its cannon overheated and exploded. From inside, the third ship panicked. It turned and ran, activating its warp engines. But the Revenant had already planted a tiny device inside a passing cargo ship 2 hours earlier. That device latched onto the fleeing ship mid-warp and caused a sudden energy surge. In the blink of an eye, the third Valkyrie ship vanished, then reappeared broken, half of it floating in space. The other half gone. No Earthship was seen. No battle was recorded. Just 3 powerful Valkyrie warships destroyed in silence. The people of Vetrax 9 watched from the ground, shocked. One moment, they were about to be conquered. The next moment, the sky was clear again. All that remained were falling pieces of enemy ships. Some said they saw a shadow pass over the stars. But no one was sure. Captain Keller didn't celebrate. He simply sent a short message to Earth Command. 3 Valkyrie vessels neutralized. Vetrax 9 safe. We were never seen. Back on Earth, the message was received with nods, not cheers. Earth didn't want fame. They wanted peace, but they knew peace sometimes required strength. The Valkyrie High Council received news of the lost ships within hours. They were furious. They demanded answers. One of their top generals yelled, "Who attacked us? Where is the enemy fleet?" But no one knew. The black box recordings from the Valkyrie ships were scrambled. One audio file remained, and it was chilling. It repeated one sentence over and over in a cold human voice. One rule echoed across the stars: "Don't cross Earth's fleet." The room fell silent. Many Valkyrie officers felt fear, real fear. Some began to whisper about old human tactics, about ghost fleets and silent wars. One admiral tried to stay strong and said, "It was just luck next time we crush them." But deep down, he wasn't. Sure, other alien empires heard the news too. 3 Valkyrie warships, gone without a fight. Some leaders started questioning their alliances. Some worlds began asking Earth for trade deals, security contracts, even help building defense stations. Earth wasn't seen as weak anymore. Earth was becoming something else entirely. A quiet power that didn't need to shout. Captain Sam Keller turned off his displays and leaned back in his seat. The stars stretched before him, cold and wide. One of his crew asked, "Captain, what do we do now?" Sam replied without emotion, "We disappear, let them wonder," and with that, the Revenant vanished into deep space, leaving behind only silence, wreckage, and a new story that would travel faster than light, across systems, spaceports, and political halls. Beings of all kinds repeated the tale, and with it, a warning passed in whispers: "Don't cross Earth's fleet." But the Valkyrie had already crossed the line, and the price was only beginning, far away from the front lines. Deep under the icy surface of Earth's moon, something ancient began to wake up. The cold halls of Moonbase Echo were filled with shadows, walls lined with old steel, and lights that flickered like stars. This place was not known to the public. Only the highest ranks in Earth's command knew what slept here. Project Voidhammer. Major Tessa Monroe stood in the control chamber, her face calm but her heart racing. She had trained her whole life for this moment. Above her, giant machines moved, unlocking doors that had been sealed for decades. Slowly, the hangar lights came on, and what they revealed was massive. The EFS Helios, a Titan-class warship, rested in silence, built for only one purpose: war, unlike other ships in Earth's fleet. This one had never flown before. It had been built as a final weapon. In case Earth ever faced destruction, the ship was armored with lunar-forged plates, and its main weapon was a solar rail cannon, powerful enough to punch through a planet's crust. Tessa looked up at the beast of a ship and said quietly, "Wake up." Engines hummed. Systems blinked to life. And deep within its core, the AI stirred. Its voice came through the speakers, calm and deep. "Voidhammer systems online, awaiting combat protocol." Tessa smiled slightly. "Load protocol Titanfall." All across Earth space, similar preparations were happening in silence. The general public only saw peaceful skies. But beneath that peace, Earth was sharpening its blades. The 7th Fleet was moving into new positions. Ships were being retrofitted with new tech plasma shields, warp disruptors, stealth drives. Weapons were tested, drills were held, all without a single news report. On Mars, inside an underground factory called Red Forge, machines worked non-stop. Earth had developed a way to build mid-sized cruisers in just 3 days, using smart alloy printers and auto-assembly drones. What once took months now took hours. And Earth wasn't building for show, they were building for survival. The Valkyrie thought Earth had only a few battle groups left. They believed the humans were stretched thin after the previous wars. But the truth was, Earth had been busy, quietly growing, improving, learning from every fight. And now, they were almost ready to show the galaxy what they had become in the outer systems. Several Earth ships disappeared from regular patrol routes instead. They rejoined under a new command, Admiral Elena Drake. She was known as the Iron Star, not because she shouted, but because her orders were always followed. Her fleet was one of the few trained under black-level secrecy. Their missions were never spoken of, and their records were locked even from Earth's own Senate. She stood in the control tower of her flagship, the EFS Ironclad, watching as rows of warships aligned in deep orbit. "Hold formation," she said softly. "We strike when they think we're weakest." Meanwhile, back in the colonies, the Valkyrie were growing bolder. After the loss at Drell Sector, they didn't retreat. They sent spies, scouts, and hackers, trying to find how Earth had destroyed their ships so quickly. They searched for weaknesses in trade routes and fuel lines. But Earth's network was tighter than they imagined. In one of the outer relay stations, a young tech officer named Leo Hunter intercepted a strange signal. It was encrypted in an old Valkyrie dialect. He showed it to his supervisor, who showed it to Central Command. Within hours, Earth's security grid was shifted, and the Valkyrie's plan failed before it even started. Still, the Valkyrie didn't stop. They believed they had more ships, more worlds, more control, and they assumed Earth was still playing defense. But they didn't know about the Helios, back on the moon. Major Tessa stood aboard the bridge of the ship as it powered up for the first time. Giant lights filled the hangar as clamps released and fuel lines hissed. The ship began to rise, engines glowing blue, dust flying everywhere. Engineers and soldiers watched from behind safety glass, awestruck by its size and power. The Helios slowly lifted into space, silent and graceful, despite its weight. Once it cleared orbit, it vanished into stealth mode, becoming one with the black of space. Tessa stood at the window, looking out at the stars and whispered, "Let them come." Back on Earth, Admiral Drake received the final signal. Her fleet, the Ironclad, the Vanguard, and the Blackstorm, all went dark. No lights, no transmissions. They became shadows drifting across the stars, heading toward the Valkyrie border. The world still slept peacefully, unaware of the weapons now hidden above their skies. The galaxy thought Earth was slow to respond, but Earth wasn't slow. Earth was ready, and soon the Valkyrie would learn what it meant to wake a sleeping giant. They would remember this moment, the calm before the storm, because when Earth finally moved, there would be no going back. In the deep silence of space, Earth was done waiting. The final decision was made by Fleet Command. No more warnings, no more patience. It was time to strike first. Not with noise, but with precision. Earth activated a hidden order known only to its highest commanders, Protocol Phantom Dawn. Commander Brooke Allen received the order aboard her ship, the Silverlight. She didn't speak, didn't celebrate. She simply nodded and gave the command. Execute Phantom Dawn. All across Earth-controlled systems, similar commands were given. Officers responded with calm voices and steady hands. They had trained for this day. The fleet didn't move as one. Instead, dozens of Earth's stealth ships disappeared into the void. Ships like the EFS Mirage, the EFS Sentinel, and the EFS Phantom activated their cloaking drives. Their signals vanished, their heat signatures cooled, and they became invisible shadows among the stars. These ships didn't aim for battlefields. They didn't go after fleets. Instead, they went after something even more important: Valkyrie infrastructure, command posts, fuel stations, shipyards, warp relays, and satellite networks. They slipped behind enemy lines without being seen, ready to cripple the Empire from within. One of the first targets was the Valkyrie orbital refinery near the planet Zenthros. It powered almost 20% of the Empire's war supply routes. The refinery floated above the planet, heavily guarded by patrols and sensors. But none of those defenses mattered when the Mirage arrived. It approached silently, then released a swarm of micro-drones no bigger than insects. These drones flew inside the station's vents, shut off airlocks, jammed power systems, and left without a trace. Minutes later, the entire station went dark. Communications were cut, reactors shut down, and the orbiting defense grid crashed into the planet's gravity field. No explosions, no lasers, just silence. The Valkyrie didn't even know what hit them in another system. The Sentinel hacked into a Valkyrie shipyard, disabling every construction. Armed in mid-air, half-built cruisers fell apart on their platforms. Robots shut down. Blueprints were corrupted. The workers ran in panic, yelling that ghosts had attacked them. But no ghosts were found. Only shadows. Meanwhile, the Phantom made its way to a communications relay on the edge of the Empire. It slipped between debris fields, dodged automated patrols, and reached the station's blind spot. Then it fired a single ion burst that fried every transmission line without making a sound. The Valkyrie command center lost all contact with their forward fleets for 6 hours. In those 6 hours, chaos spread like wildfire. Back on Earth, Admiral Talia Monroe sat in the underground war chamber, listening to the silent reports coming in. Her officers gave status updates without excitement, just numbers, objectives, and confirmations. In less than 1 Earth day, over 12 key Valkyrie systems were disrupted. 3 supply lines collapsed. 4 command bases shut down, and not a single Earthship was spotted. The Valkyrie Empire reacted in panic. Their ships began recalling scouts, rushing reinforcements to wrong locations, chasing shadows that didn't exist. One commander even destroyed his own outpost, thinking it had been taken over by Earth infiltrators. Confusion turned into fear, and fear turned into anger. Valkyrie generals shouted orders, blamed their captains, and demanded explanations, but no one could explain how an enemy they couldn't see was destroying their systems without a single open battle. They tried to jam Earth signals, but Earth wasn't using signals. They tried to track ships, but Earth ships left no trails. The Valkyrie's pride, once unshakable, was now cracking under pressure. In one of the Galactic Council meetings, a young advisor stood up and said quietly, "This is not war. This is something else. They are not fighting us. They are removing us." The room went silent. Back on the Silverlight, Commander Allen received a direct feed from a stealth drone flying over a burning Valkyrie fuel depot. Smoke filled the screen, lights flickered, and soldiers ran in all directions. She leaned back in her chair, her voice soft. "They still don't understand who they're dealing with." Nearby, a junior officer asked, "Ma'am, are we going to finish them?" Allen didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out the window at the stars. Then she said, "We're just getting started." Across the galaxy, small nations, neutral colonies, and trade unions watched the reports coming in. They saw the Valkyrie crumbling and Earth not saying a word. The silence was louder than any speech. It was clear now Earth wasn't weak, Earth was prepared. More and more systems began sending private messages to Earth, asking for alliances, trade deals, and even protection. Earth was no longer just a planet, it was a force. One that didn't roar or threaten, it simply moved and erased what stood in its way. The galaxy had seen many wars, but nothing like this. No invasion, no speeches, no flags planted on conquered soil. Just quiet movements, silent strikes, and systems falling apart. And through it all, one phrase kept spreading. A rule whispered between leaders and soldiers. Pirates and politicians, nobles and merchants alike, don't cross Earth's fleet. But the Valkyrie already had, and now the darkness had come for them. The skies above Valkyrian Prime were once beautiful. Rings of ice circled the red planet, and giant towers reached into the sky. It was the heart of the Valkyrie Empire, home to their leaders, generals, and the royal family. They believed their world was untouchable, even after losing systems, ships, and supply lines. They thought Earth would never dare come this close. They were wrong. From behind the planet's third moon, the EFS, Sovereign, dropped out of warp. It was the pride of Earth's navy, a warship the size of a city, lined with dark armor and glowing engines. On its deck stood Fleet Admiral Jordan Cross. He was not a man of many words. He believed in action, not speeches. He looked at the red planet in front of him and gave a simple command. "All ships, engage." One by one, Earth's fleet arrived. The EFS Helios, the Ironclad, the Nightshade, and more. Over 60 ships in total appeared from the shadows. Their engines were quiet, but their weapons were ready, within minutes. Earth's fleet surrounded the capital world of the Valkyrie Empire. Valkyrian Prime's orbital defenses activated immediately. Cannons turned toward the sky. Energy shields flared to life. Thousands of Valkyrie fighters launched to defend their world. But Earth had planned every move. Their AI systems jammed enemy targeting, making Earth ships appear and vanish like ghosts. Valkyrie cannons missed their marks again and again, while Earth's precision strikes hit power nodes, radar towers, and shield generators. The sky above Valkyrian Prime turned red with fire. Explosions lit up the night as towers fell. Orbital rings shattered, and fuel stations went up in flames. Earth wasn't just attacking, they were dismantling, one layer at a time, like peeling apart a machine. Earth removed the Valkyrie's defenses, piece by piece. On the ground, civilians screamed. Generals yelled into broken comms, trying to call for backup that would never come. The power grid failed across major cities. Fires broke out. Buildings shook with each impact. In the palace, the Valkyrie High Chancellor demanded answers. Where is the enemy fleet? Where are they coming from? But his commanders had no answers. The humans were above, below, and already inside their orbit. Earth's drop pods, small and fast, had pierced the atmosphere without warning. These pods carried small squads of elite human troops, trained for one mission: disrupt and vanish. They landed on critical locations, power plants, control centers, government archives, then disappeared before anyone could find them. And on every screen across the Valkyrie world, Earth sent one simple message: a black screen, white text, and a voice that echoed without emotion. You crossed the line, now you understand. It played again and again. Some Valkyrie tried to resist. They fired missiles, launched secret weapons, activated defense satellites, but Earth had predicted all of it. The Helios blocked the satellite signals with a solar flare pulse. The Revenant disabled missile tracking before they launched. The Mirage used holograms to trick and confuse enemy fleets. Admiral Cross stood silent on the bridge of the Sovereign, watching the capital burn. One of his officers asked, "Do we push further?" He shook his head. "No, we've made our point." He then opened a private channel to Earth Command. Target neutralized, awaiting further orders. Back on Earth, leaders watched the entire mission from deep within Command Center 12. No one cheered, no one smiled. They knew what this meant. Earth had just shown the galaxy what it was truly capable of, not through fear, but through flawless, silent destruction on neutral planets across the stars. News of the battle spread like fire. Pirate clans canceled planned attacks on Earth trade ships. Mercenary groups refused contracts against humans. Even rival empires opened communications with Earth, asking for peaceful trade agreements. The galaxy had changed in one night. Earth had rewritten the rules of war. Back on Valkyrian Prime, the skies were silent again. Smoke covered the stars. The capital was broken, but still standing. And Earth's fleet was gone. Just like that, they had appeared, struck, and vanished, leaving behind only wreckage and silence. The Valkyrie High Council gathered in a ruined hall, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. They had never expected Earth to strike at the heart of their power, and now they sat among ashes and cracked stone, unsure what would come next. But they all heard the same voice in their heads, the voice of a human admiral. "You crossed the line, now you understand." And from that moment on, no Valkyrie would speak of humans without fear. They had learned the hard way what so many others already knew. There's only one rule in this galaxy now: don't cross Earth's fleet. The galaxy was in shock. No one had expected Earth to move like that. One moment the Valkyrie Empire looked strong. The next, their capital world was burning. Their warships had vanished, their stations were dark, and their leaders were silent. People from every corner of space watched with wide eyes, unsure what to believe. On a neutral planet called Elverin 6, traders and diplomats gathered in a giant spaceport. Many of them had once laughed at Earth. Some had called humans slow thinkers or soft-skinned. but now they huddled around screens, watching the silent replay of Earth's fleet above Varkarian Prime. The video showed flames rising from towers, Varkari ships falling apart in orbit, and Black Earth warships drifting like ghosts. No music, no speech, no celebration, just cold, perfect action. A small alien child whispered, "The humans. They did that?" His mother didn't answer. At the Galactic Accord station, high above the planet Centros, the most powerful leaders of 12 empires sat in a round chamber. The emergency session had been called within hours of the Valkyrie defeat. Some came angry, some nervous, and some afraid. They demanded answers. Who gave Earth permission to act without warning? Is this an invasion? Should Earth be punished for crossing borders? But when Earth's delegate entered the chamber, everything went silent. It was not a general, not a soldier, not a politician. It was Captain Ava Rhodes, a calm woman, with short brown hair and eyes that showed no fear. She walked to the center of the chamber without bodyguards or weapons. She faced the crowd and said only one thing. "We warned them." No one spoke for a long moment. A member of the Sarati Alliance finally said, "But they were a major power. Your attack changed the balance of the stars." Ava looked him in the eye. "Then let it be balanced." Some leaders lowered their heads, some didn't know what to say, and some realized something important. The galaxy had a new center of gravity. As Earth's delegate left the chamber, new messages poured into Earth's channels. Dozens of worlds, once silent, now wanted peace agreements, trade partnerships, or security assistance. Even old enemies offered apologies, asking for new beginnings. Earth didn't respond quickly. They chose carefully and quietly, just like before. In the outer systems, smaller nations began to take down their weapons. They didn't want to fight Earth, not after what they'd seen. Some planets canceled their warship construction. Others opened their ports to Earth's merchant fleets. Pirates who once targeted Earth cargo routes vanished overnight. Some even surrendered to Earth's nearest patrol ships without a fight. On a desert moon in the far-reach sector, a group of mercenaries watched a slow-motion replay of Earth's drop pods landing on Varkarian Prime. One of them, a battle-hardened alien with scars across his face, set his rifle down and muttered, "We don't mess with humans." His squad didn't argue. Back on Earth, the streets were quiet. There were no parades, no parties. The people knew what their fleet had done. They didn't cheer. They remembered the years of being underestimated. They remembered the colonies lost to raids, the ambassadors who were mocked, and the lives taken by those who believed Earth would never strike back. Now, everything had changed. In a small classroom in New York, a teacher asked her students, "What do you think Earth should do next?" One young girl raised her hand and said, "Make friends." Another boy said, "Protect the weak." The teacher nodded, and never let them forget. Admiral Jordan Cross stood alone on the observation deck of the Sovereign, watching the stars. He didn't smile. He didn't feel victory. He felt the weight of what had just happened. He knew that peace, once earned through words, now stood on the edge of a sword. Earth didn't start this war, but they finished it. And that meant something, he whispered to himself. Let them remember, not out of fear but out of truth. In the coming weeks the galaxy shifted. Maps were redrawn. Old alliances crumbled. New ones formed. Earth was invited to join councils that had once been denied. Their ships were now welcomed at ports that had once rejected them. Human commanders were requested as advisors, trainers, and leaders for new coalitions, and everywhere Earth went, the same phrase followed them, like an echo across space. Don't cross Earth's fleet. But it was more than a warning now. It was a fact, a new law. Written not in paper, but in fire. The Valkyrie had learned it too late. But the galaxy had heard it just in time. The fires on Varkarian Prime still burned. The sky was filled with smoke, black clouds covering the stars. The ground shook from the damage left behind, and every tower that once showed power now stood cracked, broken, or fallen. The great halls of the Valkyrie Empire were silent, their leaders hiding, their voices gone. but Earth's fleet was no longer there. They had left as quickly as they came. No flag planted, no claim made. They didn't take the planet or enslave the people. They didn't send soldiers to rule or change laws. They just left silence and memory behind. From orbit, Earth's ships began to regroup in deep space. The EFS Dawnbringer, a large cruiser with glowing blue engines, was the last to leave. It had stayed behind to scan for survivors and record final footage of the operation. On its deck, Commander Brooke Allen stood with her arms crossed, her eyes focused on the wreckage far below. She didn't speak, she didn't smile. She simply watched as the flames began to fade. She remembered every face of the officers and pilots who had fought and died along the way. Even in victory, she felt the weight of loss, not pride. A message came through her earpiece. "Commander, all systems clear. Fleet has moved to safe zone," she answered quietly. "Begin withdrawal." The Dawnbringer turned away from Varkarian Prime and slowly entered warp. Its trail left behind a quiet hum, as if the stars themselves were sighing in relief. Back on Earth, people watched from giant screens. The war was over, but the moment was not forgotten. The news didn't shout or play loud music, it simply showed still images of the aftermath, cracked buildings, broken ships, and messages of surrender signed by what remained of the Varkari High Council. No one cheered, no one needed to. In a small apartment, a mother hugged her child and whispered, "They won't come again." In the halls of Earth Command, Fleet Admiral Jordan Cross stood before a large screen showing the galaxy map. The sectors where Varkari once ruled were now marked neutral, empty of orders, empty of leadership. Cross folded his hands behind his back and said, "We did what we had to do, but we don't stay where we're not needed." His staff nodded. Earth would not become what it had destroyed. Instead of building a new empire, Earth chose to return home. The rebuilding began not on Varkari's soil, but across allied colonies that had suffered during the years of threats and silence. Earth engineers and medics were sent to distant outposts, repairing satellites, bringing food, and offering protection, not as conquerors, but as allies. In the Galactic Accord, where the greatest powers of space met each season, Earth now held a permanent seat. No one questioned it, no one denied it. When Earth's ambassador stood to speak, the chamber grew silent, waiting to listen, waiting to understand what Earth would do next. But Earth didn't ask for more power. They didn't demand tribute or territory. Instead, their message was simple: let peace grow, or we will come again. That was enough. Many empires began teaching about the event in schools. Some called it the Silent War. Others called it the Dawn Strike, but all of them agreed on one thing: it changed everything. On Varkarian Prime, survivors began to rebuild. Slowly and carefully, their leaders signed new peace agreements, opened their ports, and ended old wars with other species. The Varkari people, once proud and fearless, now spoke with softer voices. They did not forget what happened. They told the story to their children, not as a warning of Earth's power, but as a lesson about pride, about listening, and about respecting silence. Some Varkari even lit candles each year, not to mourn defeat, but to remember how close they had come to losing everything. In deep space, Earth ships still patrolled, but they no longer needed to hide. Their presence brought safety, not fear. Where their banners flew, peace followed. Pirates turned away, and smugglers vanished. Earth didn't act like rulers, but no one forgot what would happen if they were ever challenged again. In a distant observatory, a young alien scientist looked up at the stars and asked her mentor, "Is it true that humans once stayed quiet for years and then ended an empire in a single week?" The mentor smiled gently and replied, "It's true, and they didn't do it for power. They did it because someone crossed the line." The young one nodded, eyes wide. "I'll remember that." And she would. Across the stars, in every system, on every planet, one phrase became law, not written in stone or voted on by leaders, but etched into the minds of every species who had seen Earth rise. Don't cross Earth's fleet. Because when Earth moved, they didn't roar. They didn't threaten. They ended, and those who survived would never forget it.